hear me all right, Nick? Because I don't know if my audio is picking up really well here, but
You sound good.
okay. Well, I think where we're going to start tonight is I'm going to go through the home, the data page, and the viewers. Then we'll see maybe by tomorrow. Then we can use the viewer tool to step into creating a watering prescription. But I know there's some guys that actually called me this afternoon and are just getting their software downloaded. So I think we'll just start at the beginning here. Go through what we need to get logged into and signed up to as soon as we have our software downloaded. The first thing we'll want to do, in fact, this is something that Nick Manuel told me tonight to let everybody in on. He's going to try and get a password and username out to everybody tomorrow, so we're all on the same page here. The software that I'm using tonight is my own personal software with my growers on it. Most everything we'll look at is the demo, but I think we'll start at the beginning. Once you load your software, you need to make sure that your licenses are all downloaded. So you'll want to go into that license tab right underneath the home page, manage license, and make sure those licenses are downloaded. If those are not downloaded, the virtual agronomist will not work properly. So you just go in, choose the download option, and download everything. Once the licenses are downloaded, then you can move into the app browser. The app browser tool will then allow us to load the modules, these different modules in crop metrics. And each one of these modules you can see up here, we have a basic, we have agronomy, we have land forming, irrigation, and then there's others. The ones that we'll be using most of the time are basic agronomy and the irrigation package, which is in here. Land forming, I'm not licensed for any of them. Most of that really doesn't have anything to do with what we're going to be doing in precision irrigation as far as AquaView. So most all of those modules are not turned on for us. But once we get into this tool, we'll want to go in and download all available apps. That's really the first thing that we need to do with Virtual Agronomist. Once you have downloaded all of your available apps, this settings tool, options and settings tool, down here, if you move over, you can arrow over and look into this more options and settings. And this is where we can set up Virtual Agronomist to make sure it works the way we want it to. You can see here we have a general tab, which just tells us which folder in our hard drive is holding all of this material. And it's highly recommended that we stay in the C drive folder. And I've tried to move some things around, guys, and it just doesn't work very well. So I would highly recommend that we always stay in the C drive if possible. Under the printing tab, there's some different options. You can change the letter size of your printed page, and you can also choose templates, whether you want to choose the crop metrics template or the Vision Ag page. And then you can choose a file. You can see where I put AquaView on all of my printed pages. And you can just go in and choose a file out of your own folders in your computer, and then you can choose a logo of your own to put on there. And that's how I went in and chose AquaView. So now all of my printed pages come up with the AquaView folder, or AquaView name on it. The classifications tab, this will set our default classifications for Virtual Agronomist. Standard deviation, we'll talk a little bit more about that later on, either tonight or today or maybe tomorrow when we'll get into that. But I would recommend setting everything on a standard deviation. I have my default number set at 6 in case I did use some of these other breaks, but most of the time we'll use standard deviation. When we get into the units tab, I have everything set up in feet, acres, gallons, and inches. You can go in again and choose some of the different options you could do inches, millimeters, meters, however you see fit. But if you're working with me, I don't know those numbers very well, so I'd recommend staying with feet. Sampling, we won't get into that tonight, and we probably won't even get into that until this fall. Disc area, when you pull this up, it says you're about to venture into an area where your computer, where imprudent use of the delete key could cause calamitous repercussions. Are you sure you know what you're doing? I say no. So anytime that Nick puts a little warning on there like that, I always pay heed to it. So I just stay complete with those tabs. So does that kind of make sense, guys? We want to set up our virtual agronomist right from the get-go. Otherwise, it's just not going to work the way we want it to. Any questions?
Nope.
So I think on those logos, you'll probably want to keep the crop metrics logo in there. I think Nick told me he doesn't really want us to use what was the other option there? VA or there's crop metrics and Vision Ag. Yeah, just stay on the crop metrics, and then anything that we printed out, we probably want to have the AquaView logo on. So your default should be crop metrics and AquaView.
Yep, and I agree with that. And that's the way I've got all of my pages set up. The AquaView logo, I think, is critical with what we're doing, guys. So I want to make sure and have that on there. We'll see an example of that in just a little bit. Our data tabs here, we'll probably get into more of these last two buttons here this fall when we're bringing in yield data and different forms of data. We'll take a look at the data vault and the farm import-export. And I just clicked on it, didn't mean to. The main one that we want to look at here this year is the Data Manager. I'll just go through this real quickly. What this tool does, you have a local file and you have a remote file. The remote files are our internet files, so that this way Nick Emanuel can load anything. Anything that Nick puts on your virtual agronomist will be on the right-hand side of this Data Manager page. And then all you have to do is just highlight one of these features or one of the names and hit the arrow button, and it will check and it will move everything over. If there's anything that needs to be loaded into your virtual agronomist, you just highlight the name, hit the arrow button, and it will move it over. It'll check and it'll start moving everything for you. So, see, this is an example of how it works. If there's a file that needs to be loaded, it'll just load it for you. And I didn't even know that was on there, so good example. That's how you get our files into Virtual Agronomist to make them usable for yourself. Okay, we'll go through these viewer tools. There's several very nice features to the viewer tools. We'll just click through them here real quickly. This field viewer tool probably is one that we won't use a whole lot, guys, because this is more of a tool for a grower to use in the field, mark GPS locations. Probably not much of a tool we'll use in Virtual Agronomist, but it is here. Probably more for growers to use. Google Viewer. That's the one that I highly recommend you get used to. The Google Viewer is probably the tool that I use more than any other tool when it comes to selling selling AquaView and selling crop metrics. It is a tremendous tool, and I'll show you why here in just a minute. This particular field is one that most of us have seen a dozen times. This is Nick Emanuel's field. It's our demo field. And I just want to show you how I would use this tool as a selling tool. As we scroll out, as we zoom out, we can see just the field, and we can see the layout of the changing landscape, the challenging areas in that field. And you can see how it lays in very well with our EM survey. Okay?
But here's slider is down with lower left side, guys, if you're not seeing the slider.
Yeah, the slider's down on the left-hand corner, and you can zoom in and zoom out on that field. But there's a couple of features here that I want to show you guys, and this is a tool that I use a lot just to get growers involved in looking at their fields and getting them to think a little bit about whether or not their fields could use the VRI program. You can do this in any Google Earth program, just your basic Google Earth program. And you can start looking at different fields out there. And we can zoom in on fields that are growers right in your own area, and you can find variability within their fields. So take advantage of your Google Earth tools. Take advantage of them so that you can use them as sales tools. It's this tool. Another very nice feature in this that Nick has built into Google Viewer is he's got the Pro option on here. Extremely clear. You guys see how clear that is? I mean, we can see the truss rods on Nick's pivot. It's an extremely nice tool if you want to get in close, find your test strips. There's a lot of good value in this tool. You guys have any question on this? I'm going to say no. Learn your Google Viewer tool. It's well worth it. The layer reports, this is one that I've been using quite frequently in the last few days. And all it does is puts together layers of your different maps. You can see over here on the left-hand side of our virtual agronomist, we could choose from any one of these maps to put into this layer report. What I'm going to do is just our basic EM layers and our landscape change layers, elevation, landscape, slope, and our corn and soybean yields. So you can see on the left-hand side here, every box that has been checked that is in this layer report has a black dot in it, and that will tell you which areas in this report that you have included. So you can scroll through and you can see all the different pages. And then what I have been doing here recently, and here's the I.wmv logo too, by the way, virtual agronomist there, crop metrics down here in the bottom, and then our I.wmv logo up here on the top right. But what I have been doing recently is just moving this, putting these layer reports together, going into a PDF writer, and printing them. I print them off and I save each one of these layer reports into the grower's customer file, and then I can send it to him in an email. I can just put them into a customer file and send them to him in an email. And the growers are very appreciative to be able to get their maps. So it's been a quite useful tool here in the last few days as I've been sending quite a few of these out. The multi-viewer tool. Lots of nice features with this. We'll use it a little bit when we start building watering prescriptions. Very similar to the layer report here on the left-hand side. You can choose any of these options. Landscape change, dual EMs, slope, corn and soybean yields, basically exactly what we did for the layer report. However, on this page, what we're able to take a look at is our different layers and how those layers lay on top of each other. We can find areas of variability in each one of these layers. You can see here the last one that we chose was corn yield. That's what's on top. What's on top here in your raster layers is what's on top in your maps. And we found that tool right up here. This tool up here, you can see the layers up on top in our toolbar, and that just shows us our different layers within this module. And then you can see as we move these viewer tools out of the way, we can see different layers and how they layer on top of different landscape chains. for different yield maps. Just one layer on top of another. You can also then pick and choose which layers you want to compare just by clicking them off. Let's say we wanted to take a look at this corn yield against our DPM, our subsoil. We could do that just by closing these interior maps. So now we can look just at our corn yield on top of that DPM, because those are the only two that are checked. Those are the only two modules, or only two tools that are working at this point. If we wanted to compare it against our topsoil, we can compare our corn yield just against topsoil. We could compare against our landscape change and see how our corn yields are comparing to landscape change. So it's a tool that once you spend some time working with it, you'll learn to really like it. You'll find that there are certain things that you use it more for than in others, but it's a tool that I really do rely a lot on just as I'm analyzing data. Let's take a look at the Simple Viewer tool. It has one feature that the multi-layer does not. The Simple Viewer only gives us the ability to look at one map at a time. But you'll notice up here in our toolbar, we should go across the toolbar, the Magnify tool just gives us the ability to magnify specific areas of the field. Okay, very simple. This 4 arrows out tool just takes our map back to the size that'll fit within this screen. So that's what that does. Our hand tool, of course, gives us the ability to move it. And then our pointer tool, you can see that there's values down here. As you scroll your pointer tool across the map, wherever your pointer tool is at, it will give you the EM value of that area of the field for that time in that particular spot. So you can pinpoint specific areas just with your pointer tool. You'll notice down here in the layer information, this is where it gives us the totals on this field, our minimum, our maximum, or our minimum, our maximum, and our average. This mean is giving us the average soil type for this particular field. It's telling us that it has an EM value of 46. Now you guys have heard me say many times before that the red areas are the light soil, the blue areas are the heaviest soil, the green and yellows are average. And we can kind of see that as we scroll this mouse across some of these green and yellow areas. We find that we're fairly close to that 46 range. And when we get off into these blue areas, you can see this value tab down here as that goes up into the 60s. Gets us up closer to our high, to our maximum. And these red areas bring us down into the 20s, which is around our minimum. So this gives us the ability to just scroll around here and look at that map and get a feel of what that field really is, get an idea of what's out there. Now what makes this Simple Viewer tool unique is this tab right here. And it's a Selections tab. It gives us the ability to select specific areas within this field to compare. Let's say we wanted to just look at an area inside of this light soil type. You can click that square box, zoom out to pick a spot, and then down here in the bottom in our layer information, you can see the area within that square box now. We can see what the average soil type is and what the lightest soil type is and what the heaviest is within that square box. You can see that that heaviest soil type is around a 50, and what it's doing is it's looking at this little area right there. Okay, it's a very small area, but it is our maximum within that square box. To get away from your box or to change your box, you just do a left click and it disappears. To make a box, right click, to make a box, you left click and just draw your box. And then right click to make it disappear. Have a circle tool or we can stop in the center, and we can pull a circle out. I'm working with Nick a little bit, Kevin and I are, and we're going to make this tool a little more precise. Many of you may have seen yield maps where sprinklers packages have been bad. I've seen some that there's actually a ring around the field from a bad sprinkler package. And a tool like this will give us the ability to go out there and show a grower how important it will be for him to analyze or to fix that sprinkler package, because now we can go in and analyze and show him the yield loss that's really costing him. Point-to-point tool, we can choose just point-to-points just by left-clicking and choosing particular spots. You can highlight an area, go down and look at your average, your minimum, and your maximum. So let's just say we wanted to highlight around this this dark blue area. It's very easy to do, very quick to do. You just left-click anywhere you want your line to stop. And double-click when you're done, and you can see what the average is and the minimum and maximum of that blue area right there. Pretty simple, pretty easy tool to use, but very valuable tool. Your freehand tool is exactly what it says. You can just freehand draw around anything if you'd like. The magic wand, probably the tool that I like more than anything, because I can get specific about the areas that I want to choose. The magic wand will actually highlight small specific areas with one click of the button. And you can see I can highlight all those dark red areas. This slider tool up here, it says the magic wand selection tool tolerances are higher, equal bigger area selected. As you slide this tool up, you can see the numbers changing, and that gives us an ability to highlight or choose a bigger area. A few more numbers on there. That should highlight most all of that red and yellow area. So the higher the number is here, the more area that it will choose. In other words, it's going to have a bigger variance off of your average within that area. That's all it's doing. If your average is 36, the more area that you choose on this scroll bar, the more area that you're going to choose, the more variance you're going to have off of your average. I know that's a little hard to explain, but that's what you're looking at. The more you slide up your toolbar here, the more area you're going to have with every time you click your magic wand. Magic wand is a very nice tool when you're analyzing yield data, and that's something we'll get into a little bit more later on. So, Nick, do you have anything you want to add to any of that?
I was just going to say that limit region checkbox, you want to explain a little bit on that? I don't think we use it as much on this screen, but when we're doing analysis on variable rate irrigation, we used it quite a bit last year because that, yeah, right up there, that limit the region button basically allows you when you click, when you click on a color, it's going to grab, the whole area.
Yeah, and you can see it's going to anywhere within that entire map. So if we were to choose the blues, it would highlight all of the blues. Even the blues that are just that particular value right there. So
and again, you get that slider to sort of narrow those up or widen them out as you might want to.
Right. So, and you
just wanted to tell you what that was, I guess.
Right, and you can narrow them up to the point where you can see there's very little variance off of your average because we're extremely tight in where we have our slider. But this, when you uncheck that limit region tool, you're not limiting the region. You're actually looking for all of that average soil type in this particular map that is like what you have chosen, what you have clicked on. That's all of our lightest soil. So, and here again, it's a tool, guys, that once you spend some time working with it, you can really get to know it, and I think you'll really learn to like it also. The tool that I've used, again, a little bit, but not as much, is our measuring tool. Very simple. It just gives us the ability to measure a specific distance. And, it comes up, it'll show you the acres that are within that box and different things. Again, it's nice when you're analyzing yield data and you can show a grower just what certain things are costing him within the field. You guys have any questions on the simple viewer tool? Okay.
Nope.
All righty. Well, hey guys, there's one more I wanted to show you on the multi-viewer, and it's one that we may not use a lot this year. Let's see, which one do I have here? I'll pull it up here. But I know one of the questions that I've been running across with different growers tell me over and over that they're not real sure that our EM surveys are as accurate as we say they are. Well, I pulled this multi-layer tool up one day, and if you pull up the tool and leave all of your fields open, I use Tim's field because it's the only fields that I have that are stacked on top of each other like this, that are sitting side by side. But what you'll see is this field here, and his home pivot here, his house sits right in this area, and then he has that small side hill field that most of you have seen. My example that overwaters down here, this is a real nasty side hill. But my purpose in pulling this up is look at the layout of the soil type. You can just see there's a line up across here. This is 3 different fields. This white line in between is actually the highway, or it's part of the county road. But you can see how that soil type lays out. 3 different fields. They were mapped the same day, but you can see the correlations. Guys, I'm telling you, the EM survey is a wonderful tool to show a grower. And an example like this, show a grower that what we're doing out there is actually working. And guys, you can also do that with that viewer tool as you zoom in here extremely close and use that slider tab and just see how accurate that EM survey is on top of those areas, those poorer areas in the field. Tremendously accurate. I don't know of any other way to get that accurate other than an EM survey. So guys, don't be afraid to use Virtual Agronomist as a selling tool for your growers, because what we're doing is really, truly is the right thing to do. Last but not least is my favorite tool, our Synchro Viewer. Up here across the top, again, we have the same similar tabs, our magnify tool, hand tool, pointer, your zoom to full extent tool, toggle crosshairs. We haven't talked about that yet. Capture current view. We're going to talk a little bit about that. These tabs here actually give you the ability to change how many views you want to look at. We come over here into the left, and we could choose different options. Any one of these maps we could choose to compare and look at. And we can choose to look at 2 different maps. We could choose to look at one on top of another, 3 side by side, or we can choose to look at 4. I always choose to look at 4 because it gives me the best options, I guess, in comparison. And you guys have seen this demo with me before. We're looking at the DPM. We're looking at slope, and we look at corn yield and soybean yield. Oops, sorry about that. That's another nice feature too. If you put your mouse right over the top of a map and move your roller, you can change the size of your map. You can zoom in and zoom out that way also. But here, again, gives us the ability to look at all 4 different maps at one time. Our toggle tool allows us to just to scroll over any one area at any one time. See, as we stop in a specific area, how down at down at the bottom, we have a value. Anywhere we stop on any one of these 4 maps, it's going to give us that exact value in that exact area where our toggle hairs are at. It's a very nice tool if you want to start analyzing yield data against soil change and landscape change. Very nice tool. Again, most of you have seen me use the pencil tool to draw out different areas. You can draw out different areas of yield, analyze against yield, against soil type, and against landscape change, and against topography of the time. I made mention to you here a while back at the meetings that if you draw out the challenging areas in a field, or if you even draw out the highest producing areas within the field, you can go back and look at any one of these maps over in this left-hand column, and you will find a correlation. I've looked at about 150 fields here in the last couple of weeks, and I have yet to not see a correlation somewhere. So no matter where, you may have to switch maps, guys. You may have to look at a different map, but you will start to find correlations. Okay? They are in there. You're going to start to find them. The more as you just start going through here, you'll find different correlations. The aspect map is one that we didn't talk a lot about, but it actually shows some correlation here in that light soil type, and that's because there's a ridge right here. That ridge right there is showing some correlation. Now, if we're down in Kansas, you're down in some of the areas that we're facing the drought, that hot wind and dry weather, guys, that south-facing direction is a big deal. And we may have to write some special watering prescriptions based upon this particular aspect map. So I would highly recommend you kind of learn how to use the aspect map and kind of get used to it. It's just a black and white map. In some ways it doesn't make much sense, but you can also use it to see waterways. You can see where the water actually flows in different areas. It's a tool in certain situations. If it's real dry this summer, we may use it quite a bit.
So, Kylan, on that aspect map, it takes a little bit, I think, for me to get my head wrapped around that, but that number that's down in the lower left corner, that's actually a compass point number, right? You know what that means? 0 degrees is due north? Yeah, okay.
Yep. That's exactly right, Nick. Yeah, as we scroll across here, you can see some of the darker areas, and it's going to give you the direction of the slope, if you will. Here in some of these areas, you can see where we almost have nothing, but it's more of a northerly slope, if that makes sense. And if we get down to the 180s here, yeah, like 160, 180, that's going to be more of a southerly type slope. Is that kind of what you were saying, Nick?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And you get up into your 300s and whatnot up in here, that slope's going to go more towards the north. So, but this gives us an idea that this area in here is facing to the south. And if we have those hot south winds in the summertime, about August and July, we may write a watering prescription just for that, to get a little extra water on that side hill. But this is a good tool to use to see, you know, how is that going to, if we're going to water a little more here, how's that work in our soil type? Is that something that we should do? This particular field may not need it because that's where our heaviest soil type is. We may hold enough water in there. There may be other fields, though, where that's not the case. That may be our lightest soil on that south hill. And if that's the case, we'll sure want to keep an eye on that and encourage our growers to watch that throughout the summertime also. So these are all just tools that you kind of learn as you spend time on the software and get to use it and analyze things a little bit. You can also bring in an overlayer tool or an overlay. Say you're looking at all 4 maps, but you wanted to compare it against a different map that you don't have up. You could overlay then, say, a soybean map. And you can see down here in the bottom right-hand corner, you can zoom that soybean map in and out so that you can reduce its overlay. and compare it against all 4 of these maps at one time. It's kind of interesting when you look at that soybean map against that that aspect map. You can see right where that ridge is at. So, guys, it's all tools that become extremely useful when we start looking at writing watering prescriptions. We've got to know what our landscape is. We've got to know what our soil types are. And if we do know that, then it can help us determine how we want to write a watering prescription, which we'll probably talk more about tomorrow as far as how we're going to write them and which determining layers we choose. We'll look at that tomorrow. So, Nick, you have anything you want to add or something that we need to point out that I didn't touch on?
No, I think that's it on this one, but I do agree with you. I probably use this tool more than I do any of the others. It's just probably the most versatile of any of them that are on there.
Yeah, it is. And like I say, there's just so many things that we can do. We talked a little bit here before. I wrote a planting prescription, I think, for one of these. And you could even go in and bring in your planting prescriptions and do comparisons with them. So, and this is our probe locate layer that we didn't talk a lot about. I think we'll touch on that tomorrow also. But a probe locate layer I actually brought in and compare it against other layers. So, guys, there's really you can do about anything you want to with this feature. But it's nice to start comparing our data with. Comparing some data to other parts of data. So, for instance, soybean yield, compare it against phosphorus in the field. You know, is there area against our nutrient levels out there? This is a new tool that Nick has brought in. So, we'll all be learning a little bit more about that this fall.
And he's pulling those off a grid map, I think, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, using grid maps and coming up with nutrient levels and allowing us to put them on here and just compare our soil types and yield against that the grid map results. So, well, guys, I'd sure like to answer any questions. I know I went through that fairly quick, and I'm probably not the best teacher in the world, so I need a good student will ask good questions so I can be a better teacher. So,
Kylan, you want to click on the wrench over there on your data layers and just show them what, yeah, there you go. Okay. Just a different way to export one of these layers. If you were going to work with a grower, for example, and you wanted him to be able to look at that data layer in Google Earth, you can actually export it as a KMZ file and email it to him or whatever. And, of course, you've got your standard CSV and all the other ones, but just wanted to show you what was in that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, you could, like Nick was saying, you could export to KMZ and mail him a copy. You could also go down in here and do different grid files. I have not used any of these myself. I have used the JPEG and the PNG files just to create the pictures, but as far as the grid formats, I haven't used any. Have you used them, Nick?
Not those, no. I've used the KMZ and the images, but that's it.
Yeah, and those will probably be the ones that most all of us use.
Well, I guess, come to think about it, I have used the CSV also for some data analysis. The guys wanted that to import into some of their software. And the nice thing about the CSV is it's pretty much universal. Just about any GIS program that you're using can handle a CSV file, or CSV file.
Right. And another tool that we didn't talk about is this Capture Current View. Just a little camera up there, and guys, it's a pretty nice feature just to capture the view of the four layers that you're looking at. You can just click on that camera, and it will capture it and send it into a file. You can choose which file you want to place it in, but it just takes a picture of these 4 fields. And it's a nice tool to send to a grower also. Just send it to him and analyze something. Just email it to him real quick. Very nice tool. But you can do similar things right over here also if you you want to take just one layer at a time, you can send it in one layer at a time. So, and guys, again, I can't stress enough that all this is as you spend time working with this tool, you'll learn how to use it more, and it'll become extremely useful when you start writing watering prescriptions. By analyzing this data, you have a reason in why we're writing prescriptions the way that we do. And that really helps me, at least, when I start writing a watering prescription. I feel that I'm doing the right thing because I'm comparing landscape to soil type, and it starts to happen extremely quick. It looks like a pretty intense software, but the more you use it, the quicker you'll get at it, and it just starts to fly. You can write, I wrote 10, 15 prescriptions in about 30 minutes here this afternoon. It's very, very simple to do.
So we need to go back and review, Kylan, on the passwords again. And so how is that going to take place? Nick is going to send passwords, or do we need to have the guys request those passwords to me and I get them to Nick, or what's going to be the procedure for that?
As far as I understand from Nick right now, he's going to want a list from us as far as who's going to be CWPs, and I know he knows some of them. But what we were talking about just for our training for the next couple of days is he was going to release, say, a 2-day or 3-day license for everybody so that everybody could have a look at this and be able to use it. Similar to what Syntech did on the probe training.
Right.
Sit for a few days and give us the demo layers to look at, just so we can mess with this tool and do whatever we want to with it. So that's what his plan was, is to just make sure everybody had one under a demo layer, and he'll provide us with passwords. However, those guys that are going to be full-time CWPs, he wants to know who they are so that he can get them set up with their own username and password. So that's something we'll want to be thinking about in the next week or two.
All right. So, guys, I'll be sending something out, and we got a whole bunch of stuff that's going to be coming your way. We have a new contract that's got to come out, and, of course, that order form, and I've got a couple of more modules ready to go now on the AirMax software. So we'll get all that out to you, and then also at that same time, after you get your contract signed and back in, then we'll go ahead and issue you a temporary license for Virtual Agronomist. And then, obviously, when you log in to Virtual Agronomist, you will just see those fields that you're helping provide the consulting on.
Right.
Well, that's great. Anybody else that's played with Virtual Agronomist? Oh, I know one thing I was going to mention. Go back to our data manager.
Okay.
And something I learned, well, a couple things on that. If you're making prescriptions, let's say Chad Lindau there, I made a plant for prescription or whatever for Chad, and so it's going to save it in Chad's folder on my hard drive, but maybe I wanted Kylan to look that over and see if he had any thoughts or ideas or what it might look like. Kylan's not going to be able to see that unless I sync that back the other direction. So any changes I make get saved to your local folder, and then if you're going to want anybody else to be able to see those, whether it's Nick, Emmanuel, Kylan, myself, whatever, those have to be synced back over. So it's just you can see their syncing arrows. You can go one way or the other. It doesn't matter. And that really becomes important when you're making variable rate irrigation prescriptions, and you might want Kylan or somebody to look at that and see what they think. He's not going to be able to see it until you get it synced over there. So the other thing, and my computer just signed off here. Hang on a minute. The other thing I was going to say, when we have a lot of different things, let's say you wrote a variable rate prescription for all of those guys and you wanted to sync them all over, what you can do if you hold down the control key as you click on them, it continues to highlight them, and then when you hit sync, it just syncs everything over. You don't have to do each one individually. So if you hold down your control key and click on Ag and then Art, yeah, there you go. Now hit your sync button, and it'll sync all of those that are on there. Now, if you've added a bunch of files, or if Nick's put a bunch of files on there, you just will go get a cup of coffee because that's going to take a while. But that is a way to do it so you don't have to sit there and wait for one to get done, then get another, wait for another one to get done. Speeds things up a little bit.
Yeah. And, oh, yeah, once in a while you'll get these, if you do it too fast or too much, you'll get the bozo that wrote this program didn't foresee this error. So maybe we get once in a while.
The guys have a great sense of humor. Right? That's some of the best error messages I've ever seen.
Yeah, it is fun. The bozo who wrote this program did not foresee this error. Well, he's working with me. He'll find errors he didn't foresee. So, but yeah, guys, that's something that I was going to talk a little bit more about tomorrow, and I'll show you a specific example when we build a demo prescription, how we put it into here, and then how we can sync it right back over into the internet files, the remote files. Another reason too, I highly recommend we always do that, because that way if we need Nick Emanuel's help or Nick Lammer's help, or we want some recommendation, and also the grower is going to be able to see it when we get the viewer tool up. That's what we'll have to do so the grower can see his prescriptions.
That's right. Absolutely. That's right.
We're going to have to know how to do that. And like I say, it's very, very simple, just to highlight a name and then click it back into the remote files, and that way your grower can see it. And well, I do that still quite frequently if I'm questioning whether what I've done is even the right thing to do. I go right to the top dog, to Nick Emanuel, and I'll say, hey, is this the way I should be looking at this? And if I can sync that over, he can pull it up, and within 15 seconds he's looking at it. So it's a very nice tool to be able to have. So, but we got to remember to do that too. So.
Right.
Well, is there anything else to cover tonight, Nick?
Nope, I think that's it, guys. You'll have another opportunity tomorrow for those that can make it. And I did record this, I think. I had the record button going, so we'll try to get you the link back out to that. I'll YouTube it or put it up on Dropbox or something, so you'll be able to go back in and take another look at this. So scheduled again tomorrow for 8 o'clock again, and probably go to about the same amount of time, and then we'll see where we're at, whether we need to do something on Wednesday or not. But for sure we'll do something tomorrow.
Yeah, I think, honestly, just going through things a little bit today, unless we have questions, I would highly encourage the guys to email you questions or email me questions. But if you don't have a lot of questions, we'll go through a couple more analysis things, and then we'll start looking at building a watering prescription and how to customize a watering prescription, sync it across, and that'll be about it. That'll get us up and going. So it might be tomorrow is all we need, but I would highly encourage. I would rather do 3 nights if we can get some really good questions in here. So.
Okay, so you guys can think about that. If there's something that pops into your mind, shoot that email out, and we'll cover those right off the bat, and then we'll go into some more stuff. So. All right, well, thanks, guys, and we will talk to everybody tomorrow probably.
All right. Hey, thanks, Nick.